Today I'm going to make V.P.N pizza, or Vera Pizza Napolitana. You might not know it, but in Italy they have very specific, like, state-controlled definitions of what constitutes Neapolitan pizza. And so anybody can go online and figure out what these definitions are, and then it's just a question of, can you reproduce it at home? And I'll start with a baker's formula for a V.P.N style pizza. You're going to want to use Caputo double O flour or some other sort of double O baking flour. Your water will be 55.5%, your salt will be 2.77%, and your yeast will be 0.16%. In fact, the actual V.P.N recipe says that you dissolve 1 liter of water in a mixture, add between 50 and 55 grams of salt and 3 grams of yeast. Now there's a lot of different kinds of yeast, and given that they're so specific about everything else, it's funny that they would omit that part. And then they go on with some processing instructions for the dough that I'm going to cover here. So for our dough, I'm going to add 274 grams of water to the bowl. And the reason I'm using weights is because baker's formulas allow you to scale all the way from a teeny tiny pizza this big all the way up to 100,000 pizzas. And today I'm going to make 3 pizzas in about the 12 to 13 inch range with a thickness factor of 0.08 and a bowl residue of 1.5%. So to start, we'll put 274 grams of water in our mixer bowl. Then we'll add 14 grams of salt and 1 gram of yeast. We'll stir that up and we'll add our flour. Now this flour process is specified by the V.P.N as being very specific. Our total flour weight for this dough is 493 grams, but we're only going to add 10% of that at the first start. So I've weighed the flour out into a separate bowl, and we will use about 50 grams of that flour, get things started, and mixing on low over the next 10 minutes we'll gradually add our flour in until after our flour is all in and incorporated. We're going to mix on low for 20 minutes. After the dough is combined, it should feel slightly sticky, it should be soft, and it should be elastic to the touch. Now the next step is to let it rise in one big ball, and we'll take the dough from the mixer, put it on the counter, and cover it with a damp cloth. After 2 hours, I'm going to separate it into individual dough balls weighing 260 grams apiece, and we'll let those rise. Now the V.P.N specifies that they can rise for up to 6 hours, but they need to be used within 6 hours, and we won't have any problem doing that today. The next part of the V.P.N pizza is a little bit difficult. You have to cook it in a wood-fired oven. They say in one part of the document at 905 degrees, and then they say in another part of the document that it needs to be 800 on the deck and 800 in the dome. This is kind of a problem because I don't have a Neapolitan pizza oven built in, and to actually buy one from a company like Forno Bravo is like, you know, $3,000–4,000 to get one that's good. So I found a little device called a Pizza Kettle, and I'm going to use that. Some of the reported problems with the Pizza Kettles is that they get really hot on the deck. You know, they get 800–900 degrees easily, but since the dome of your Weber grill does not have thermal mass, the heat from the top isn't adequate, and plus it's too far off the pizza. So what I've done is I've taken an extra grill and set it on top of the screws that hold the Pizza Kettle together, and then I put an additional baking stone on top of that. So hopefully we'll be able to get enough heat. The Pizza Kettle is fired with a chimney of charcoal, and then you put your hardwood in on top of that, and it will take some time to heat up. Exactly how long, I'm not sure. Well, I've got a chimney full of charcoal here, I'm going to kind of spread these along the back wall. That's what the instructions say. And I'm wanting to get some pretty high temperatures in here. So I actually have some ash that I'm going to throw in there. We'll see how much wants to go in. So our temperature's climbing. It's going to take a while for it to reach operating temperature, I think. So checking the temperature here towards the middle of my stone, which is where my pizza goes, and where maximum temperature in there is about 758 degrees towards the back of the stone. Oh yeah, it's a little higher, 740. Front of the stone's a little bit lower, but still pretty consistent across there. And the top is similar. I just checked it a little bit longer and we'll be ready to cook pizza. Okay, so my oven's preheating here. I'm going to take a little bit of flour and put it on my bench here. Got my dough balls that have risen up pretty well. I'm just going to set them out here. Now the first pizza I'm going to make is a pizza margherita, only you're going to have to pretend that it is, because we looked all over for basil today and they didn't have any basil, so I'm just going to use spinach leaves instead. So you'll just have to kind of pretend that we're using that. Now notice how when I do this I'm pushing out towards the edge and trying not to deflate all of the air out of the crust, and just kind of push it out towards the edge here. And you know, once you get to a certain size and it doesn't seem to want to stretch anymore, you just give it a little rest and maybe stretch one of the other pizza skins. But this one seems to be doing pretty good so far. I'm going to give that one a rest. Okay, so it's not quite perfectly round, but I'm satisfied with how stretched that is. These are those tomatoes. The V.P.N specifies 80 grams of tomatoes. I'm not going to mess with it. These are basically just those certified tomatoes, San Marzano, with a little bit of salt in it that I just pulsed briefly in the blender. And spreading this out a little bit. You want to make sure you get it all the way out to the edge. And I don't have a source of fresh mozzarella, so I kind of had to make my own here. There's plenty of videos on YouTube how to do that. I'm not going to describe it. But basically, what I need to do is just kind of tear off some chunks of this and spread it around. You don't want to overload these pizzas, because again, it's going to take literally 90 seconds or so to cook this, and if you have too much stuff on there, the toppings won't get cooked and whatnot. Now you're going to have to pretend that these are basil leaves. You just scatter them around. Some people put them on after baking. It's just kind of your personal preference. I'm going to put them on before. This is spinach. It'll still be good, it just won't be authentic, you know, V.P.N approved. So now that we have that, now we have a trick to getting that onto and off of the pizza peel. Have to do this somewhat carefully. I'm just going to spread around a little flour, and hopefully that'll take up any moisture. And we just kind of slide this under and hope that we don't rip a hole in our pie at the same time. And now we'll just go put it on the grill. So we definitely got plenty hot there. I'm measuring 885 degrees in the center of that, and on the top I've got 750 or so. So it's not quite perfectly balanced. But it's going to be all right, I think. Now, I'm not too crazy about the stone, the way they have it here. So we just slide her on, and I'm going to have to turn that. I'll have to turn it once it starts puffing up on the back there.
Now it's really starting to bubble. That's looking pretty good. Notice the top is cooking too, because I've got that thermal mass cooking from above, and I think the bottom is plenty done. I'm just going to pull this one out, and we'll put the next one in.